I'm Emerson Schwarzkopf, editor of Stone Update magazine. At some point in 2020, I promised myself the next time borders opened up, I'd return to Italy for the major trade shows in stone and tile. In 2021, I got my chance. At the end of September every year, two Italian cities, Verona and Bologna, gain international attention in hard surfaces. Verona hosts Marmomac, which used to be the largest natural stone event in the world. The Shaman Stone Fair surpassed it several years ago, but China's continued pandemic lockout of foreigners put the spotlight this year back on Italy, which had its own border problems, and we'll get to that later. Bologna, meanwhile, is the site of Cersaie, the world's biggest exhibition of ceramic and porcelain tile. Both events took a year off from in-person shows in 2020, but plan full operations this year. The shows usually overlap each other, making it hard to see both in the same year. However, a scheduling quirk put Cersaie's opening 2 days before Marmomac, so I decided to do the hard surface double act. Getting there, to put a new twist on an old cliché, was not half the fun. My itinerary took me from California to Dallas-Fort Worth Airport to London Heathrow and then to Bologna. I needed an initial COVID test to make sure that when I first boarded an airliner in the United States, I'd be able to enter the United Kingdom. And I needed to submit, less than 72 hours before landing in London, a United Kingdom tracking form, even though I'd only be in secured airside space while changing planes at Heathrow Airport. I then had to submit a European Union tracking form to Italy's health ministry, which essentially duplicated the UK form because, well, Brexit. I then had to take another COVID test at Dallas-Fort Worth Airport because my first COVID test wasn't close enough, 48 hours, to my arrival time in Italy, and after all that, British Airways didn't accept my EU form and second COVID test by email from Dallas-Fort Worth. So I had to present all the documentation again to a desk agent at Heathrow Airport to finally get a boarding pass to Bologna. During the flight there, I had to fill out 2 more passenger tracking forms. The flight attendants kept one, and nobody in Italian customs asked for the other. But the next morning at Cersaie, I had to show my U.S. vaccination card at the expo door, show my EU tracker form, and had my temperature taken to see if I was normal, at least in emanating body heat. And after all that, I was in a trade show. And to be honest, despite filling out every form and literally getting poked in the nose repeatedly, I really thought I'd be stopped somewhere along the way, including at Cersaie's entrance, and sent home. It's still a very different world out there. Was it worth going through all the hoops to get into a tile show? Well, yes, considering that calling Cersaie a tile show is like calling the Olympic Games a track meet. Cersaie's organizers noted that this was a scaled-down affair from previous years, but the nearly 63,000 in Bologna made for a busy expo. And while there are installation tools and modern lavatory fixtures, most of the show is tile. To be more precise, porcelain slabs looking remarkably like stone. This wasn't a booth-by-booth replication of Calacatta either. Tile is fashion as well as function, and this year's color seemed to be green. And green. And green. And green. And green. And green with water. So was Cersaie completely awash in green-tinted marble replicas? No. As one of the speakers at the event's press conference noted, blue is the leitmotif this year. So let's have blue. And more blue. And more blue. You get the idea. You could also find the debuts in several places of specific types like Sahara Noir. And then some images that, if you couldn't place the name, well, it's got to be cataloged somewhere in natural stone. Variations of onyx also led the charts in new products for a number of companies, from the understated to the bold. Several companies also helped out designers by taking their newest looks and pairing them with complementary products. Some of these had a light touch, while others made some bold and interesting pairings. However, the most interesting thing I saw was Lapitec's booth. Lapitec introduced an electrothermal mat for a new kind of conductive heat on its sintered stone. But there was something else cooking with the display. On closer inspection, instead of the usual mitered edge, there's a continuous through-body pattern with a wee but discernible polished beveled edge. Two of them, in fact, in this picture. Lapitec also showed off the through-body look with this fluting along the front of the cooking display. Here's a quick video look. Given that I was bending down and pointing my cell phone at knee level, I couldn't do this for very long before raising the ire of some well-dressed Italian ladies nearby. Not everyone offered a stone look-alike product at Cersaie. However, the material dominated at the very least 60% of the tile products I observed. Not all the exhibitors I talked to had eyes right now on the U.S. market, but you can anticipate we'll see a lot more of this stateside in 2022. After 2 days of time, I took the train north to Marmomac. And yeah, before getting in the door, I showed my U.S. vaccination card, which the gate attendant checked very carefully. Had someone check my temperature. Again, I had some anxious moments before someone nodded their head, and I passed through the turnstiles. Like Cersaie, Marmomac drew a smaller crowd than usual, 30,000 plus as compared to 69,000 for the last live event in 2019. And like the tile show, it operated in a reduced exhibit area, although restrictions on entry to Italy had a larger impact here than at Cersaie. Italy effectively stopped all travel from India and Brazil with very limited exceptions that didn't include work or business. Combined with China's all but closed borders, it meant Marmomac proceeded without the full participation of 3 of the world's largest stone exporters. The border restrictions didn't stop some participation from those countries. Brazil offered a comprehensive sponsored pavilion, and other companies such as India's Tab and Pocarna Quantra made appearances. Boulders, blocks, and slabs, mainly from EU countries, offered a good cross-section of natural stone, although not in the quantities of previous Marmomacs. If Marmomac had a showstopper for stone, Antonini Luigi's Silver Streak would fit the bill. While the stone received plenty of pre-show press, a solitary block revealed the intricate and complex nature of contrast veining in its basic two-tone black and white scheme. In any case, the striking look brought out the cell phone cameras. One, mini trend came with more offerings of slabs of less than 2 centimeters in thickness. The slim down movement appeared in several exhibits with stone vendors, as well as machinery to slice up blocks in thinner pieces and finish them down. As far as production machinery, Marmomac didn't have the massive gang saws, although there were blades on hand, and less of the larger-scale quarrying equipment on display, although this wire saw on wheels caught the attention of many attendees. The standard lineup of bridge saws, CNC production centers, and tooling also filled the available space in several halls. Robotics showed up in several places, including this one from Intermac, and several Baca Systems arms were exhibited by a European distributor. Marmomac organizers capped the end of several halls with full-width super booths, including this one from Intermac. It filled plenty of space, and by creating a one-way flow of traffic, eased COVID concerns. At Marmomac and Cersaie, staff remained vigilant about everyone wearing a mask. Unless you were giving a presentation or eating, masks remained in the up position, lest the mask police give you a firm and stern reminder. Speaking of presentations, Marmomac's organizers, along with Informa Markets and the Natural Stone Institute, that's the Institute's CEO, Jim Heeb, made a strong pitch to enlarge the Natural Stone Pavilion at next February's TICE in Las Vegas. Marmomac's Italian Stone Theater offered a look at creativity in stone by pairing with some of Italy's most famous design studios for Chio of Milan's teddy bear. the output of Lamborghini's studio, and a huge Swatch watch. In another area, Italian designers also inadvertently offered up a hard rock version of the old dad joke of the timetable. Marmomac also popped out a couple of unusual surprises, including this natural stone butcher block design from Barsi Marmi. Breton SPA, meanwhile, allocated a large part of its booth on a multimedia display for Krios, a technology to create unique quartz surfaces using just one base color. But here's the one that made me go, From B&T Quartz, a plotter to place custom designs on quartz slab blanks. The non-operating floor model was shown as a work in progress. We'll check back next year. After a week of trade shows and about 25.5 miles of walking the aisles, it was time to catch a ride home, but not before one more appointment in the basement of Rome's Fiumicino Airport. In a hushed set of cubicles and an empty waiting area, I waited to see if I passed one more COVID test to allow me to get on a U.S.-bound flight. And after an anxious 15 minutes, I got one of the most welcome pieces of paper I'd ever received in my life. I could go home. My overall takeaway from the two shows is that we don't need to worry about international product, whether it's surface materials, equipment, or supplies. Companies, especially in Italy, seem to be working and succeeding through the pandemic. Getting product shipped here is another thing, but that's not part of this report. And the in-person trade show continues to revive. Even under constraints much, much tighter than what we have in the United States, the Italians put on solid shows. Neither Cersaie nor Marmomac came anywhere close to pre-pandemic levels, but the shows offer plenty of optimism for the future. Trade shows are alive and well. And after a week of international planes, trains, buses, and crowded events, so am I. If all the tests and forms help to keep me healthy, well, thanks.